Hi, everyone. My name is Philippa Hughes, and I am the director of Looking for America. It's a project in which we have been going around the country, organizing bipartisan conversations, cross-partisan, and organizing art exhibits, answering the question, what does it mean to be American? We talk to Americans all over the country. And now we're collaborating with the Friedrich Ebert Foundation for a little side project in which we are talking to folks on the left to hear what they're thinking about right now as we lead into the election. And we are focused on people who live in battleground states in particular. So today we're in Michigan, and I am excited to talk to my friends in Michigan about what they're thinking. And so I'm going to let them introduce themselves first, and then we'll get right into it. Diane, would you mind starting?
Sure. My name is Diane Banks. I am the executive director of a local nonprofit organization that focuses on community improvement and philanthropy. And I live in a suburb of Detroit in Macomb County, Michigan, and I'm excited to be part of the conversation.
Great. Thank you. Anika?
Hi, I'm Anika Goss. I'm also the executive director of a nonprofit based in Detroit that focuses on economic development and land use and sustainability. I live in Detroit. I'm a third generation Detroiter. I grew up as a little kid in California too, but so I have a whole other side of my life in California, but Detroit is home.
Awesome. Oh, and I should mention that I actually met Anika in Germany. We were on a great trip there. So I love German films. Brandon?
My name's Brandon Bowman. I live in middle of Lapeer County, so kind of northern, the thumb area of Michigan for perspective. And I work in Macomb County, so I travel back and forth between the areas. I'm a library director, worked in that field for about 25 years now. Have been pretty much, doing that for ever since I even was in high school. I volunteered in libraries and things like that. So it's kind of part of who I am. So, yeah.
Awesome. Thank you. So let's get right into it. I was just reading a piece in the New York Times this morning about how our president has disparaged Dr. Fauci and says there's nothing to worry about, and that guy's an idiot. Are people in Michigan still talking about the pandemic, about the virus? What are people saying, and are people tired of it, or are they tired of the president?
Well, I'll start, unless you wanted to start, Diane.
Go ahead.
So I, and it really kind of saddens me because I do feel like the state is split in this way that's really, really unfortunate. Detroit experienced, Southeast Michigan, the numbers were just exponential. And in Detroit alone, we lost 1,500 people, and plus several thousand people that were sick, including me. I was very, very sick for a very long time. And so I think the conversation is definitely here. How do we make sure that we're all better so that we can get back to school and get the economy back, get people back in business, making sure our businesses are secure. But to be clear, the loss that Detroit has experienced, 1,500 people in a really short period of time, is profound. So that means every person here in Detroit has experienced loss at some level or severe illness. And so I think that's really the perspective that we're seeing down here.
Yeah, I'd say I'm kind of more where I live is a lot more northern Macomb County, which is very red. most people that live around me, lots of Trump signs. And I'd say, you know, I attend church, so I'm active in my church, and most people in my church that I know, it's interesting because day to day, people are wearing their masks. You know, they understand that the virus is still out there, and they're doing what needs to be done. But as soon as you start talking politics, the whole conversation changes. And, you know, I have friends that think that it's no big deal. The virus is no big deal. Like, bring it on. If I get it, oh, well, I'll be fine and life will continue. And then, you know, friends that are more in like the health field, doctors and nurses that I know, you know, I think they're much more conflicted. They obviously know the science and they trust the science. But then politics gets in the way of that too, and that changes the conversation. So it creates a lot of stress, a lot of stressful conversations I've had, even just with friends. It's hard to even change the narrative at all and just, you know, have some empathy. But it definitely depends on whether you've been touched. Like Anika said, it depends on whether somebody in your family has been very sick and you can see that and it's tangible and you've been affected by it, or if you haven't and all you see is what's on the news and what you're getting from Fox News or wherever, then you're going to think completely different about it. So, I mean, that is the sad part. I mean, I think anybody with a science background, I don't know how they can, you know, not take it seriously and think that, you know, the least I can do is wear a mask. But for people that really don't understand science, or, you know, how viruses work, or how your immunity works or anything like that, I think for them, it's pretty hard to make any changes in their personal life. And they think of it more of a right, or whatever that is. And it is hard. I think it creates a lot of stress for people, relationship wise, for those of us who think differently than those around us, I guess. I'm sure Brandon probably is feeling that too.
Real quick before we go to Brandon, I was thinking about how I mean, I live in a very liberally place, and so I don't have those kind of conversations as much. But I was thinking, I wonder if people are wearing their masks because they are deep down, they know they're scared, but outwardly they're like arguing with you about whether they should wear their mask or whatever, because they have to, because of tribalism, or because we're polarized. So they know their position they're supposed to take.
Right.
But deep down, they're like, oh, but I better wear the mask because, you know, people are dying.
Yeah.
You have any, I mean, I don't know.
I think it's an automatic to go to the talking points.
Yeah.
They're used to hearing the talking points from whoever. So that's where they go, even though if they really take a step back and logically think about it for a minute, that probably wouldn't be their first response. But even I've noticed that on the news too, when they're just like talking to Joe Schmo on the street, and they ask a question, the automatic response is a talking point, something that you're hearing in the news and not necessarily related to their everyday life. So that for me is really frustrating. It's like, can we just get away from the talking points and have like an honest conversation about what you believe, in your heart. But
anyway, Brandon?
Yeah, so living out where I do, I've lived here pretty much my entire life. It is not so much that they don't believe the science, is that they think the mask is a form of control. So it's like, I don't want to wear the mask because someone's telling me to do it, and you know, I'm going to be, you know, I'm bucking authority by not wearing the mask, even though if you know, when you try to talk with people and really boil it down, saying, well, you know, the government, if they really want to control you, they have multitude of ways to do so already. I mean, you pay your taxes, you have your license, you have, you know, you pay car insurance. And so they're, you know, if they really want to control you, they already have those mechanisms in place. So if I was going to choose one, it wouldn't be a paper mask to do so. So, so I think that's the hard thing up here, is that everyone, I think it is part of tribalism, you know, saying, show my allegiance to, you know, whatever ideals this may be, you know, by fighting against the mask. And where I'm at, don't wear masks. You know, we really have to fight with people to wear masks up here, you know. So I'll go to the local grocery store and you can count the number of people who don't have masks on when you walk in. And like during the major part of the pandemic, back in like March and April, you would see people wearing the masks and stuff. And then like when May and June started coming around, people stopped wearing their mask. And so you go in the grocery store and you'd say, in March and April, you'd have maybe like 2 or 3 who weren't wearing it. By April, end of April, early May, June, you have like 10 people not wearing your mask in a small store. So those were the kind of frustrations for me out here is like, I am one of the few people on the street who, my neighborhood is, my city is about 15,000 people. And it is pretty much red. I am one of the few people who, is of a liberal persuasion out here. So but I do see a lot more people starting to trend away from the Trump signs and stuff. So, which is nice to see. But this election cycle, especially, there's not as many as there were in 2016, but it is still quite prevalent. But I don't know if they don't believe the science or it's just a matter of being intentionally obtuse. So I guess it would be, for lack of a better word.
Yeah, I've been wondering that myself.
Yep.
So, I am obsessed about thinking about the election and, all the virus, all the things that are related to the election. But let's say I'm just going to create this vision of Biden-Harris win. It doesn't solve all of our problems, but it certainly puts us in a different trajectory. What do you wish we would start talking about more, other than the president and his drama?
Yeah, all those issues that matter, climate change and education and, those more complicated things that require more conversation at every level of government.
What I think is that the worst thing that's happened, the divisiveness that's occurred during this administration, like a lot of Midwestern cities, Detroit is 78% African American, and the rest of the state, but only 14% representative in the state, African Americans, right? But because of this new culture, this new moment of time that we're living in, where inequity and racial divides and what it means to be Black in America is so much a part of the conversation now. What I'm hoping most of all is that Biden-Harris will set a new culture of understanding on both sides so that we can begin to have more conversations that are honest and that are engaging and that are productive. Whereas before, I think even during the Obama administration, and I think this is really the difference, that during the Obama administration, I think there still weren't honest conversations that there are inequities that exist for people of color. That there were a lot of white people that thought just because Obama was in office means, so we're done with this, right? You're good. And I think now there's been such an awakening of so many people, all of the books, all of the talks, all of the Zoom forums on race and equity and culture and ethnicity, that we would have a moment to be able to really have honest, open, and competent conversations that we can understand what this inequity has done to tear us apart and how we can rebuild together. We all win. If every single one of us has the opportunity to be successful, Michigan wins, right? And I really want to be hopeful that we can actually do that, that it won't be this liberal agenda, blah, 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 blah. We just won't win from that kind of attitude.
I really hope those conversations happen either way, but yeah, it does change the background around who's at the table having that conversation, I think,
Mhm.
depending on which way the election goes.
And I guess I'm more pessimistic because of the people that I interact with. I think that, there's going to be that level of, it's a liberal agenda, yada, 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 so on and so forth, because it has been growing every year since, since I started paying attention in the early 80s. Is, it always becomes down to partisanship. It's not what's best for the state as a whole, or even what's best for the even your county as a whole. It comes down to sticking it, stick it to the man, stick it to your opposite party. Whereas I think that's going to continue as time goes on. I think that's where we are in politics right now. And I wish it wasn't that way, because my grandfather was I guess you would call him like an Eisenhower Republican, and he always told me that he was the best deals are when everyone leaves the table feeling like they got the shaft. And I think that's kind of where we need to get back to, is it's not always my way and it's not always yours way. It's kind of that compromise. And we've just kind of really lost that over the last, 20 some, 30 some odd years. And it's, I hope we can get back to that someday, because while I may have my beliefs, I also understand that there are people who have the opposite beliefs. And I think somewhere in the middle is something that we can all live with. But out here, it's definitely, red as red can be. And, there are people out here who definitely use that to their advantage, because they're not Republican, they're not conservative. They just run on that party ticket to get whatever they want. So then you end up with people like Todd Corser, who was here in our state, who, got into state office and basically used it as his own little playground and got into a lot of trouble doing things. And I think that's the thing that I think Anika was alluding to earlier, is you don't even run for a public office, or I think it was maybe Diane said this, you don't even run for a public office out here as a Democrat or Green Party or anything else, because you're not going to win, because it doesn't matter who you are, it's what that letter is after your name. So I think that's where, in order for things to happen, we have to get past some of that partisanship. And I don't know what the answer is, how to do that, because it's a conversation that has to happen, but it has to happen in such a way, basically almost you need like a facilitator to step in and just saying, hey, we need to, here's your perspective, here's my perspective, let's kind of mesh them together and see that we're, in a lot of areas, we're not so far off. But I guess for my hope for the election is that maybe we'll get over some of our xenophobia and really looking at, immigration as something that is a positive for our country, especially, living in Macomb County, or living in Lapeer County and working in Macomb County. These are two areas that desperately need population growth in order to survive over the next couple of years. And we're not going to have it unless we have immigration. Working with, there's a group called SEMCOG, which is the Southeast Michigan Council of Governments. And they've done a study about how the area around here is going to grow over the next 25 years. And without immigration, it's going to be completely stagnant. And so I don't think a lot of people in this area understand that without immigration, we are going to lose, I think they send it'll be 100,000 population loss within the next 25 years in this area, which would be huge. So I think that's my hope out of this, is that, maybe we'll be able to rescind a lot of the immigration policies that have been passed over the last 4 years and get back to something more normal. I could shoot for pie in the sky and say, hey, we'll get rid of all the immigration standards, and people who want to come here, go back to almost like a Ellis Island kind of, immigration policy, without quotas. But I don't think that'll ever happen. It's a dream, I guess.
Well, that opens up a whole other Pandora's box of things for us to talk about, but I want to be respectful of our time, because I have a lot of opinions on that too. I'm sure you all do too. Thank you so much for taking time to do this. This has been so interesting for me. Seriously, thank you. And hope it's interesting to our audience as well.
I hope so too. This was really great. So I think, Philippa, you've been invited to come back. This will be
Mhm.
a really, I mean, I think we'll probably need you. You'll have to have conversations all over the state to bring us all
Yeah.
back together.
I'm working on that. So yeah.
Yeah. Civic discourse needs to happen a lot more. And I think a lot of people are afraid to have it, but then once you do it, it's, you know, it's healing and,
Yeah.
and important
That's
going
right.
forward.
And very personal, right?
Mhm.
Like this isn't just, we're talking about politics, but this is really, really personal for people.
And it should be, because I think we focus too much on this sort of national thing that like, that's a lot of that stuff doesn't have anything to do with us. What are the things that have to do with us? That's when it gets good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Y'all
You.
have
All right. Take care.
Thank you.
Bye.
It's nice meeting both of you.
Yes,
It's nice
you
to meet you as
too.
well.